My name's Dorothy Hobden, and I started work at the Observatory in 1961. I stayed there until 1990 when the Observatory moved to Cambridge. But in the meantime I worked in in three different departments. Because I'd worked as a student, I knew I'd quite like the idea. My supervisor at college was quite into, well, she was a mathematician obviously, but was also into things astrophysical and astrometry, and she recommended that we went to the Observatory as students, which is what first started. But we had to apply to the Admiralty. Once, having been a student, thought, well, my friend Jennifer and I, we both thought that's what we wanted to do. We didn't want to teach. And it was under the Admiralty in those days. So you have an interview and we went up to Admiralty Arch. Well, I was specifically in the computer department, so we were there to service all the other programmers in the Observatory. So we ran their programs and helped them if they had problems. So it got to the stage where they mostly did the programming, but we helped if they needed. In the early days we had to do, before the days of computers, we had to proofread, you know, all the star almanacs and the nautical almanacs. I think all of us in the NAO, we proofread for something like 2 hours a day, and that was not a job I liked. I don't think anybody was mad keen on it. But you'd have columns of figures and you'd have to difference them to make sure that, you know, one of the digits wasn't misplaced. So I think they were very, very pleased when computers were eventually able to do their own checking. The first computer was called a Hollerith 1201, and it had, would you believe, 1,000 words or 1,024 words of storage, and it took the whole ground floor of the West Building. They did star charts and navigation charts. I helped an astronomer do a program for double stars when he'd been observing on the 28-inch. And we were allowed to have an ICT computer in, I think it was 1964. And I looked after the running of it and the operators and so on, and did a bit of programming and helped other programmers with their programs. And the computer was a transistor-run computer, so very different from nowadays. And then I think in the early 70s I went to work in the astrometry department, where they measured plates. The astronomers would take plates, they'd be 6 inches or 8 inches or whatever, and the Galaxy machine would first of all find the positions on the plates, and then it would have a second run to find all the magnitudes down to very great accuracy, several microns. And then that led to when the observatory started up in La Palma in the early 80s. I moved to the La Palma computing department, but the Isaac Newton was starting up, and the 4.2 metre didn't come until later on. So I went out to La Palma several times. We'd do the work at Hurstmansue and test it on the 36-inch at the up where the Science Centre is now, and then I'd go out with the astronomers and perhaps for a fortnight and we'd get it working. And once it was working, of course, it was up to the astronomers after that. I'd get the odd phone call if something went wrong with the programme. But I had student courses every summer. In fact, that's how I worked at the observatory, because I went on a student course in 1960. But each year they had student courses for about 6 weeks, and they were known to do the odd prank from time to time. I think on our course somebody put a car broadways across the moat bridge. But I think one year somebody put a flag up on the Isaac Newton telescope. We were each given to different departments, and we'd have lectures every afternoon, so we did learn something. But we also did like scientific assistant work. I think Jennifer and I helped with measuring stars in Omega Centauri, which is a globular cluster. Well, it was a very nice place to work, and people were nice, and everybody, I don't know, it was just a community really. The first 3 months I lived in the castle.
Right.
My college friend Jennifer and I, we started together in September of '61.
Right.
And we lived in the castle until Christmas, and then we found ourselves a flat in Bexhill. But most people lived somewhere between Eastbourne and Bexhill in a sort of semicircle. And there used to be well, we were under the Navy in those days. There'd be a naval bus would meet us at Pevensey Bay. I remember one Christmas I'd been home to Northern Ireland, and the weather was so bad I couldn't fly back, so I got the boat back and I got the train down to London and the London train down to Eastbourne, and then I couldn't get to the observatory to work, would you believe, having managed all that. So my husband played cricket and we played tennis and badminton. I think he played hockey as well. It was very sociable and it was a very good community. I mean, I think there were about 250 people worked at the observatory in the earlier days. It was tailored down in the late 80s, and of course by the time it moved to Cambridge I think they were down probably below 100, I'm not sure exactly.
And you met your husband, John, there?
Yes. He was very keen on sport and cricket in particular, and I had learned to score for cricket as a very young girl, and so I scored for the cricket team, and yes, one thing led to another. And I mean, there were several observatory pairings. We were only one of probably a dozen or so. We had our reception in the castle for free in those days, married in Hurstmonceux Church. Astronomer Royal even came, so he was very much a character, but he played cricket, and I think that's why. And he liked, I think he liked being off duty and relaxing and just being, you know, ordinary. I did play some, funnily enough, just thought he was keen on music. I had some Beethoven duets, and I did a couple of times play some duets with him. Considering the various options that were originally laid out for the future of the building and everything, I think the fact that it went to, you know, the Canadian University and that the domes went to the Science Centre, I think couldn't have been better probably. I think the Science Centre's grown and grown, and it's very much on the map these days, isn't it?